Teachers and students of Reddit, what is the most NSFW you have seen happen at school? NSFW. Back when teachers used overhead projectors, they always had to have a squirt bottle handy to clean their writing from the clear laminate pages. Well, I had one teacher that would also use it to squirt kids that were talking or sleeping in class. Whenever she ran out of water, a student would go fill it. One day a friend of mine, Brad, had the great idea to add a little piss to the mix. I guess him and my other friend, Stan, had this planned out. The teacher always asked one of them to fill it. First she used it to clean the projector and Stan started laughing. The teacher stopped and verbally corrected him. Then she continued to clean the projector. Stan lost it laughing. Then it happened, she adjusted the bottle and shot him with the piss water. Then Brad loses it. At this point everyone is wondering what the heck is going on. As the two are dying laughing, Brad manages to speak. I pissed in the bottle. Everyone busts out laughing. Brad and Stan get a week suspension and legendary status. Had a friend who taught high school algebra at a fairly large high school. After lunch one day his students came in looking like they had seen a ghost. One student in particular came up to him asking if he could go to the bathroom to puke. Upon asking what was wrong, he found out that one of the pregnant girls at school had given birth on one of the tables in the lunchroom in the middle of lunch. No further questions were needed. Well, this didn't happen to me, but it did happen to my stepbrother. This was in his freshman year gym class. There was this mentally challenged kid named Larry that would come around and talk to all the girls, and the girls would always play flirt with him. Needless to say, Larry was quite the ladies' man. Well, one day Larry made another appearance. Only this time he was fully nude. That day everyone in that gym class saw the biggest D ever. The faces of the girls staring at it was priceless. To this day they call him Hang Low Larry. Edit. Thanks for the gold, mysterious stranger. Whoever you may be. Some guy fingered his girlfriend in biology. Under the desk. Middle of the day. The person next to him didn't even know. I saw the guy getting head on a school bus. On an overnight trip. Right in his seat. Surrounded by other sleeping kids and teachers. He gave me a thumbs up. Girl gave a guy a BJ right outside the front commons window. It was winter, so she became known as the snowblower. It was rumored she did it in exchange for some cookies. This one kid in my school thought it would be a clever idea to just start masturbating mid-class. No one noticed at first as he was doing it, but when he was finished, he wiped it into the girl's hair in front of him. He then got expelled and I never saw the kid again. In middle school, two special needs kids decided to duck in one of the gyms. There are some noises that you can't unheard. In high school match class we had a substitute teacher. She was pretty cool and she didn't make us do a damn thing. Well, one kid in my class who had never even said a word all semester jumped up out of his seat, run to the teacher's desk, and starts jerking it like a madman. In just a few seconds he came all over the desk and in the trash can. After that he ran out of the class. That was the last time I ever saw him. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I saw this guy get hugged from behind by his GF in high school. She had huge boobs for a chick her age. The guy must have jizzed on his pants because he had a big wet spot in his crotch afterwards. Edit. My highest upvoted comment. Above Hitler gazing Jews joke. I used to teach night school welding classes. Once had some bonehead show up for class wearing shorts and sandals. Definitely NSFW. Didn't see it but heard it. My freshman year, two kids snuck up into the inner workings of the ceiling and had sex. Since they were in the ceiling, the girls' moaning echoed throughout the school. A hall monitor found them, told them to put their clothes on and escorted them to the principal's office. So back in year 10 we were in class watching some documentary with the lights off, so it's basically pitch black. Soon however we start to hear this couple getting a bit hands and intimate in the back of the room. No big problem, we just ignored it and keep watching the documentary. 5 minutes later I start to hear moaning coming from behind, so I'll turn around and lover boy's down below the desk with his head between his girlfriend's knees. Fortunately the teacher steps in at this point and breaks it up. They both got threatened with expulsion but ended up with just a suspension. TL. Dr. Guy goes down on his girl in the middle of class. High school girlfriend and I would often sneak off during lunch into the wrestling room or our high school to play around. Mostly hand jobs and fingering. The door was never locked and not once in 2 years were we ever interrupted. Eventually friends started asking where we were going and we told them, explaining we just liked the quiet place. Eventually they joined us in the room and we played hacky sack in there. Seldom did we fool around in there anymore, but one day I can't seem to ever forget. A large pile of gym mats was stacked in the corner. We were sitting there leaning against them staring out the window and talking when out of nowhere she unzips my pants and starts going down on me. I'm nervous as hell as a group of 6 people are right behind me kicking a footbag around, and all of a sudden it fly over my head and lands beside me. He looks up, grabs the hacky sack, and hurdles it back to them like nothing happened. I'm a teacher now, and so far, nothing really too bad. However, when I was 16 I was a summer camp counselor for 4-year-olds. It was actually my first time as a counselor, so it's only fitting that I learned a very valuable lesson about giving instruction. It was water day and we were about to go outside to play water games when I told the kids, "Okay, let's change into our swimsuits." Clearly, I meant, grab your swimsuit and let's head to the bathroom to change. But these kids thought, oh, okay, let me change right now. Within 10 seconds I was alone in a room with 17 naked 4-year-olds. I froze. I didn't know what to do. Seriously, a solid 30 seconds passed and I just stood in shock before I moved into action. Okay, get everyone dressed before anyone sees. Within 10 minutes everyone was in their swimsuit and we enjoyed water day. Yeah, that was definitely NSFW. MRS. Crabapel and Principal Skinner were in the closet, making babies, and I saw one of the babies and then the baby looked at me. Edit. Found. Video. NSFW. 2 things. Same teacher. 1. She left the class to talk to another teacher outside. Kid goes to her computer, open the browser, and the history is just read 2 blinks. 2. End of year camping trip. On the last night before we leave, all the teachers get drunk and totally don't notice that a couple of students are just hanging out with them in the mess tent an hour after we should have gone back to our tents. So anyway, as you can imagine, the joke get quite vulgar and racy. Now I forget the context, but one of them ended in her lifting her top up and flashing everyone in the tent, including the students. A mildly attractive girl asked me if I wanted a blowjob at school. Assuming she was joking, I declined as I thought it would be embarrassing if I said yes. Turns out my best friend got a blowjob that day. This thread makes me wish I had more A6 in high school. A girl, sophomore, was in her boyfriend's car in the parking lot before school. He didn't even go to our school. They were having sex. Vice principal catches them and yells for them to get out of the car. They both got out and were holding articles of clothing over themselves to cover up. The VP, realizing his mistake, told them to get back in the car and get dressed. Approx. 100-200 people saw. A girl stuck a green marker up her V in the middle of class. One girl could queef on command. She would queef a lot. This was quite funny. We would always be like, Melissa. PPPSSSS. Melissa. Comma do it haha. The high school I went to was a combined middle school and high school. We had different administration and different campuses, but they were on the same plot of land, just on opposite sides. During my junior year, 4 girls on the middle school side decided to have a pregnancy pact with each other, and that's exactly what they did. They all get pregnant from 2 different boys. I really hate Florida sometimes. I am not a teacher, however I saw it when I was in high school in year 12. I was in study hall, which was lightly supervised. As in, the teacher would walk in, say shut up and do work, then walk out, and we wouldn't see them until 5 minutes before the end of the period. There were maybe a total of 5 people in the whole class and 2 of them happened to be dating. Over the course of the semester we had caught them finger banging, giving, receiving oral, but the best was when we heard her moaning loudly. I turned around and she was on top of him, riding him. It lasted about 2 minutes before someone else turned around, whipped out his wallet, took out a condom, and threw it at them. He said, and I quote, "If you are gonna do that, shut up and be safe about it." Halloween party at high school for senior year. I'm from the UK, so we're all 16-17. It's getting late and I'm with another friend, so we walk outside for a breath of fresh air and spot the Grim Reaper shagging a pink fairy in between bushes outside. We'll never forget. A janitor walked in on the girls' basketball coach getting a mouth job in a classroom after school. Turns out the girl was on the basketball team and the coach is married, with 2 kids and a pregnant wife. Even worse, the girl blowing him was from a broken home and had been staying with the coach and his wife until her parents could get it sorted out. While in GR 10, 16 years old, we had this weird kid in our class we didn't know. About a week later we find out he was kept behind. So that's why we didn't know him. Our school was 2,500 kids. Anyway, for the first 3 weeks of school this kid brings all kinds of weapons to school. Ninja stars, nunchucks. One day he brings this massive katana to school that he hid in his jacket. In a case he goes on about how his mom is such a maniac and rich and he wished she wasn't around. Next morning weird guy isn't in class. We all get called into the assembly room, where we are told one of the school's students went home early and stabbed his mother 30 times. It was the weird guy, and the reason his mom was such a bitch, she didn't want him locking the door when his girlfriend came to visit. So that's my idea of a NSFW story. I'll try and find an article of it. Also to add for the next couple of weeks people would make jokes about how the family, the dad and son, can't eat mincemeat. Kids dipped cheap knives in ketchup and left it in the bathrooms. A couple banged in my high school's elevator when I was there. I guess the guy couldn't get it done going up all those 1 floors. But when the doors opened, there were people waiting to go down, or to get in, to use the elevator to go to the ground floor. I don't know how to end that sentence without some kind of pun. Figures I'm tardy to the party. I went to a rural school with a focus in agriculture and hillbilly tendencies. All of this happened my senior year. As it turns out that 12th year was entirely NSFW. Principal got walked in on banging the picture lady by student council president and secretary. I guess you could say it was life touching for both of them. Life Touch is an American class picture company. The photo lab was shut down permanently after it was found to have sugar residue on the stands and an undisclosed amount of marijuana. During the one random search in my Hill Jack school's history, student teacher asked football coach gym teacher asked to resign following rumors of a rave taking place in the weight room following a late season win. Might have been a bigger issue if administration had realized at the time the 2 pregnancies our cheerleaders experienced were both is from the same time. Repeated hateful graffiti in the flamboyant computer teacher's room was met by the known bully's car window getting smashed in with glitter dumped all throughout the inside with a large quantity of bull semen. The attack was synced perfectly with our school's 1 outdoor camera's rotation. The perpetrator was never found. Edit. Evidently Reddit does not care for quotation marks. I obliged and removed them. A girl gave a guy head in her car 3 days in a row during lunch. Her windows are not very tinted, so if you were parked by her you saw the whole thing. At a school dance in the auditorium, the curtains were lifted on stage to reveal a girl giving her boyfriend a blowjob. Her name was Felicia, but for the rest of the year she was known as Fellatio. My high school football coach was caught banging a girl who did stats for our team in the equipment closet. He surprisingly was not fired. 2 weeks later he was teaching a class and punched a kid for talking back, knocking him out. He was then fired. In my first year I saw some guy with his girlfriend walking in the hallway and he put his arm around her and poked her in the pussy. Weird. Didn't even touch her up or anything, it was just a quick poke. I caught a couple of teenagers having oral sex in a Jeep during the homecoming game. I was walking with a student through the parking lot to the building to unlock the doors to decorate for the dance. It was obvious what was happening. I made a point to speak extra loudly when we walked past the Jeep to give them a warning. When I came back, they played it off. The girl said that she had been laying in his lap. I said that when I lay in someone's lap, I usually don't do it face down between their legs. Till my school is boring as hell. I was in high school 96-2000 and it was the dawn of the internet still. Our computer teacher, who didn't know it about computers, was showing us the internet and how to search, etc. She was trying to act like she knew something because the principal, who was this uptight Pentecostal, was in the room. She asked what would be a safe site to go to for an example. I said, whitehouse.com. Which at the time was a porn site as the actual government site is whitehouse.gov. So on the big screen she pulled it up and then panicked. It doesn't seem like much, but it was my small victory. Me and my friends thought it would be funny to mess with this guy's video files from the allocated chapel video. I go to a Christian school. Into the video with the MR Hands video cut midway. The whole school saw a man being ducked by a horse, including the pastors and principals. It was hilarious. 8th grade. I was on a meet and greet trip at a wine tasting event with a few kids in my class. After the event, my teacher and classmates had to take the train back to school. The train was packed and we all had to cram together. Just so happens that I ended up standing behind a girl from my class who had the most developed round bubble tight ass for an 8th grader. The train ride was very bumpy and I ended up accidentally bumping into her ass with my D. Due to the fact that I was wearing basketball shorts and boxers and she had on a thin sundress, I felt like I was sticking my D into a fluffy cloud. Eventually she caught on and started doing it back. None of the other students saw cause they were facing the other way and there was a load of other people blocking their view. After about 35 minutes of non-stop furious dry humping, I ended up getting the most intense orgasm of my life. We all got off the train. While walking back to school with my class, I looked down and noticed I had jizzed all over my left sneaker. A huge clump just chilling on the front of my kicks. TL. Dr. I dry hump a nice ass on a train and jizz all over my sneaker. When I was in high school, the school resource officer, police officer, came up to this black guy who had an afro and said, "What do you keep in there?" His afro. Drugs. So the black guy pulled a pen out of his pocket and stabbed the police in his back, then punched him in the face and broke his nose. The black guy got expelled, but I don't think charges were pressed because of the police officer's racist comment. My brother is a high school teacher, and a lazy one at that, and when he found of a modern version of Macbeth, he thought he had struck gold. He watched the first couple of minutes of the movie to get a sense of it and decided that it would work well for his class. Flash forward a couple weeks and he leaves the film for a substitute teacher when he is away coaching at a tournament. He comes back into class the next week and asks the class where they left off. One kid puts his hand up and says, "At the orgy scene, Mr. Smith." As it turns out, the 3 witches from the story are super hot schoolgirls, and when they meet with Lady Macbeth, it turns into a softcore lesbian orgy. TL. Dr. My brother showed a softcore lesbian orgy scene while trying to teach Macbeth. My sister and my brother-in-law had sex during class whilst they were still dating. Not sure how they pulled that off without getting caught. In middle school, one of the teachers came into our science class. He wasn't our teacher. He was interrupting our real teacher's class. Laid down on one of the tables and then just started going off on a rant about random things. He was very, very drunk. Not NSFW, but something I will never forget. I walked into the bathroom in high school and found the toilet overflowing, absolutely flooding the bathroom with a mentally challenged kid laying face down kicking his hands and feet. That is memorable, but his laughing and screaming "I'm swimming" will stick with me forever. In high school, students who stayed after for sports would often wait on the cafeteria. These were usually the good popular students who were into extracurriculars. Once a student got suspended. He was pleasing a female student orally on the cafeteria table. Banana girl. She filmed herself ducking herself with a banana and sent it to her boyfriend. The banana broke in half inside her. Boyfriend sent it to everybody he knew at school. The next week, everybody threw half bananas at the girl. In 1st grade, we got a new classmate in the middle of the year. He was a refugee from a small village in Africa. Can't remember the country. He had not yet grasped the concept of toilets, so when he had to go, he would simply walk out in the schoolyard and go about his business. This was in the middle of the winter in Norway, so because of the heavy snowfall no one noticed before there was several smallet piles in every corner of the schoolyards. Poor guy. Edit. Refugee, not fugitive. My apologies. English is definitely not my first language. One time I walked into the bathroom in middle school, and there was a kid masturbating at the urinal. I assume that was what he was doing. Anyway, I had to it, so I went in the stall. I left a good 5 minutes later, and he was still standing there, not moving or talking to me. Keith was a weird dude. A friend of mine once told me he would regularly masturbate during class, under the table. I wouldn't believe him, until I saw it once. This one chick in 11th grade blew and swallowed 8 guys one after another in the bathroom. She then puked all over the bathroom floor and went back to class. My year 8 maths class was out of control and I had a tiny redhead lady for a teacher. Anyway, she lost her it and threw a chair screaming "Shut the duck up." Then she ran out and took 9 months off due to stress. When I was in my 10th grade, I was asked to come to the teacher's room for clarifying my marks. I couldn't find him in his room, where he usually sits all the time. Decided to call him. His phone actually got answered because of the thighs pressing hard against the phone, and all I could hear for the next 10 seconds were both male and female moans. Couldn't identify the female teacher though. I had a teacher that forgot to screen movies before he showed them to the class. We were going over the history of the King Arthur stories and why they were so popular and what they meant to the populace. So Teach decided he would show us a movie. I think it was called Merlin. Boobies. So many boobies. 6 scenes with boobies. He ended up picking another movie for the boys and let the girls finish this one cause we all said we didn't mind. Hell, I'm a lesbian. Boobies.